The funeral that became a forest. There once was a girl named Ama, born into quiet poverty in a village the world had long forgotten. She was the last of 7 children, frail, slow to speak, always the quiet shadow in the corner. Ama was the kind of girl the world overlooked. Gentle, invisible, forgotten. At school, she was always last. In the village, she did the work no one else wanted. While others soared in academics and found favor, Ama stumbled, unseen and unrewarded. She prayed. But heaven, it seemed, stayed silent. All around her, her peers began to rise. One became a viral speaker, another launched a world-class business, another flew abroad to chase dreams, another built a ministry. Ama stayed behind. She tilled the fields with her father. She nursed her sick mother. She taught barefoot children in a shed that barely stood, without pay, without praise. She fasted. She prayed. She waited. Her only audience was God. Her only reward, obscurity. And yet deep within, a whisper echoed. Wait, be faithful. I'm not done with you. Still, year after year, her hope began to flicker. She wept the words of Psalm 13. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? And then came the breaking point. Another wedding invitation. Another friend who once mocked her, now successful, radiant, admired. They arrived in foreign cars, polished shoes, glowing smiles. Ama walked in with dust-covered sandals and a dress she'd worn to 3 weddings before. She overheard them whisper, Ama? She's still in the village. Something inside her cracked. She ran to the forest, dropped to her knees, and began to dig with bare, trembling hands. Her fingers bled, her soul broke, tears mixed with soil as she cried, God, why does everyone else fly while I crawl? Have you forgotten me? Am I not worth a future? And finally, with nothing left, she whispered, If I'm late, let it still be worth it. She called that moment her funeral, the death of her dreams. And in that grave she dug, she placed a note. Lord, if you still see me, grow something out of this. Then she walked away. The world moved on. Seasons changed. Years passed. The world moved on. Fast forward 17 years. The village that had once mocked Ama was suffering. Famine, broken homes, hopeless youth, corruption. But then something strange happened. An oak tree, taller than anything they'd ever seen, had grown in the very spot Ama had buried her dreams. The tree bore fruit that never failed in drought. Its leaves healed sickness. Its roots spread water to nearby crops. People came from nations to see it. One reporter asked the villagers, Who planted this tree? They didn't know. They had long forgotten Ama. But deep beneath the tree's roots, untouched by time, they found a sealed bottle wrapped in earth. Inside was Ama's note. Lord, if you still see me, grow something out of this. Then the world remembered. The year Ama buried this note, she left the village, and news came that Ama had died years earlier, unmarried, unnoticed, uncelebrated. But what she planted in pain had become the very thing that fed nations. She wasn't forgotten. She wasn't late. She was buried for transformation, not for termination. Some rise to be kings quickly, like Edom. Others are buried like seeds, like Israel. Genesis 36, verse 31. These are the kings who reigned in Edom before any king reigned over the Israelites. Edom had kings. Israel had covenants. Edom had speed. Israel had destiny. Yes, Edom had kings early, but Israel gave us a Messiah. Edom rose quickly. Ama waited deeply. Like Israel, Ama didn't arrive early, but she arrived with purpose. And that made all the difference. What God builds slowly, he builds strong. But burial isn't the end. It's the beginning of resurrection. God doesn't microwave his masterpieces. He slow cooks them in silence, where no one claps so they can feed nations. The ones who seem behind are often the ones being buried deepest, because the fruit they will bear cannot be seasonal. It must be eternal. You may feel like you're at your funeral, but in heaven it's the planting season. Surprisingly, the news about Ama's death was fake. She had gone to another village and kept doing her good works, and in heaven had heard her cry. Years later, a stranger walked into her humble classroom. He wore a quiet suit and carried a quiet smile. He watched her teach with no lights, no microphone, just passion and love. After class, he introduced himself. I'm the director of a national education foundation. We've heard stories about you. You've trained dozens of children who passed national exams in broken huts without a salary or spotlight. How? Amma simply said, God sent me. I just stayed. He smiled. We're building 100 schools across the nation. We want your method to be the blueprint. Suddenly, the girl who was always behind was sent ahead. She became a voice for overlooked children. Governors listened. Ambassadors sought her counsel. Nations partnered. And what stunned the world wasn't her brilliance. It was her depth, her humility, her patience. They funded her vision, but what changed them was her heart. She returned to the forest, but not to bury. This time, she brought her students. She planted a tree in that sacred soil, and on it, she placed a plaque. This is where I almost gave up, but God hadn't. To those who feel like Amma, you are not forgotten. You are not late. You are being planted for something that cannot be rushed. They got their crowns early. You're getting roots. And in the end, the rooted ones outlast the crowned ones. If this story breaks your heart, in the best way, it's because it's meant to. Because some of the most dangerous lies are the quiet ones. You're behind. You missed it. You're buried. But buried is where oaks begin. And your resurrection is already growing. Wait, well, you're not behind. You're being built to last. What begins in silence often ends in a global song. Amma didn't miss her destiny. She grew into it. And when it came, she was ready. Prayer. Lord, if this waiting is where you work best, then break me and bury me. I don't want to rise quickly. I want to rise rightly. Make my life a tree that feeds generations. Let me be hidden long enough to be holy. Amen. Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much fruit. John 12, verse 24. To give them beauty for ashes, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they may be called oaks of righteousness. Isaiah 61, verse 3. He is like a tree planted by rivers of water that brings forth fruit in season. Psalm 1. Do not envy sinners, but always be zealous for the fear of the Lord. There is surely a future hope for you. Proverbs 23, verses 17 to 18. You're not being denied. You're being designed. And what's growing beneath the surface is worth every season of silence. You're not slow. You're sacred. And when you rise, you won't just rise. You'll resurrect.